If you've ever felt blindsided when a woman pulled away, you're not unlucky, you're unarmed. Tonight, we forge the weapons she hopes you'll never wield. Most men drift through courtship as if the stage lights are too bright, congratulating themselves for being earnest while failing to notice who controls the curtains, the cues, and the audience's applause. The woman, far from a passive ingenue, often arranges that entire theater. She writes the social script that awards her virtue for modest gestures and grants her license to revise history when outcomes displease her. She secures sympathy in advance, converting potential missteps into charming anecdotes you are expected to forgive. In this drama, she is both star and critic, while you are relegated to stagehand. Unless you choose to see how the ropes truly work, begin by understanding that the high ground she occupies is largely an illusion produced through two simultaneous feats: public consensus and internal conviction. Public consensus springs from centuries of storytelling that paints women as ultimate moral arbiters, instinctively pure, and therefore justified when they claim injury. Internal conviction is the mirror through which she calibrates her daily moves. She need not be consciously deceitful, for culture has installed a program that tells her she deserves adoration merely for showing up. Your first task is to pierce that veil inside your own mind. If you continue to grant automatic moral superiority, you will negotiate from the floor while she speaks from the balcony. Observation is your blade here. Conduct silent inventories of her words and acts. Track how often her stated principles bend when desire whispers a different tune. Watch for the subtle inflation of her benevolence. How a small favor becomes, in recounting, a grand act of charity. How a minor frustration snowballs into a tale of epic betrayal. These embellishments are not malicious so much as strategic. By enlarging her virtues and injuries, she stocks emotional capital she can later spend to manipulate concessions. The more you notice these threads, the less hypnotic their weave. Once the illusion is naked before you, resist any urge to expose it immediately. Nothing triggers defensive theatrics faster than unmasking a performer mid-scene. Instead, treat knowledge as leverage, not confession. Cultivate a calm detachment, a knowing smile that hints you are immune to cheap spectacle. Respond to exaggerated grievances with neutral curiosity. Interesting you felt that way? Then let the silence linger. When praise flows too lavishly, accept it with a nod rather than reciprocation. These refusals deny her the feedback loop that props up the illusion and force her to recalibrate. She will sense you are watching from a vantage she cannot quite locate, and that uncertainty unsettles her cultivated confidence. Do not confuse this detachment with cynicism. Your goal is not to become hostile toward women, but to reclaim authorship of your own narrative. When the curtain falls, everyone is simply human, equally capable of brilliance and hypocrisy. By refusing to pedestalize her, you grant both of you permission to negotiate honestly. She may resist at first. Accusations of coldness or arrogance are common, but that is merely the system defending itself. Hold steady. Consistency in this posture is rare enough that, over time, curiosity replaces indignation. She will test boundaries, seeking to learn which of her old tricks still work. Each time they fail, she files away data. Here is a man immune to cheap magic. Respect, though slow to germinate, takes root exactly there. While maintaining composure, quietly reshape the stage lighting. Reward genuine accountability with your presence and warmth. Withdraw when theatrics resume. Praise specificity, statements grounded in observable facts, while ignoring vague emotional generalities that invite you to play villain in her one-woman tragedy. When she narrates hardships devoid of personal agency, redirect. What steps are you considering to change that? This swaps victimhood for strategic ownership. The moment she adopts that lens, you both step behind the curtain together, seeing the pulleys and backdrops for what they are. Conspirators rather than warden and captive. Remember that illusions thrive on audience participation. Social media magnifies applause for performative grievances. Friends eager for gossip reinforce half-truths out of camaraderie. Remove yourself from auxiliary stages where her narrative rules uncontested. Decline to comment on posts seeking sympathy. Excuse yourself from group chats spiraling into man-bashing masquerading as empowerment. Your absence denies her story a supporting chorus, gradually shrinking its scope. The less reinforcement she receives, the quicker she must reconcile her on-stage persona with off-stage reality. In parallel, craft your own myth with equal deliberation. Display a calm, dignified generosity that is never reactive. When you give a compliment, ensure it is specific, earned, and rare enough to remain memorable. Keep personal projects visible yet partially obscured. Let her glimpse ambition without handing her the blueprint. While she once relied on the halo of moral superiority, she now confronts a rival currency, demonstrated competence paired with inscrutable depth. She cannot cheaply purchase this with social validation, so she must barter genuine engagement, curiosity, and eventually humility. If she adapts, collaboration becomes possible on a level field. If she clings to her pedestal, you will notice desperation tactics, exaggerated crises, sudden affection surges, or moral accusations designed to shame you back into compliance. View these as confirmation that the veil is tearing. Stay poised, neither capitulating nor gloating, simply refusing the premise that her feelings supersede observable fact. In time, even the most ornate illusions fatigue under the weight of reality. And when that moment arrives, the board is yours to harangue. A man who tries to win a woman with reason walks into battle holding a candle. Logic is sterile. It offers certainty, clarity, and structure. All things the emotional world neither craves nor respects. When a woman engages with a man, she does not seek an equation. She seeks an experience. She wants to feel, not calculate. And yet, too many men arm themselves with facts, accomplishments, or moral correctness, thinking these will persuade her to admire, respect, or stay loyal. They forget admiration born from reason is fragile. Desire born from emotion endures far longer and bends the will. You must understand that her decision-making engine is not built to run on logic alone. She will say she values honesty, but reward mystique. She will claim she wants emotional safety, yet gravitate toward the edge of risk. She will describe her dream man as communicative and sensitive, and then fantasize about the cold, confident stranger who barely gives her a second glance. This is not hypocrisy, it is instinct. And instincts are immune to debate. If you attempt to convince her of your worth, she may nod, but you have already lost. The moment you try to explain why she should feel something, you confess that she doesn't. The way forward is not through argument, but through emotional architecture. You must become the architect of tension, not the builder of balance. Balance is comfort. Comfort is dull. Tension is what sharpens interest. You must craft experiences that stir her, moments that seem accidental but are meticulously planned. Instead of telling her how much you care, you lead her into a conversation where you abruptly change topics after she starts to open up. Not to be cruel, but to leave her reaching. You drop hints about something meaningful to you, then walk away before she can probe further. She feels the hook. Her curiosity inflames, and curiosity, once sparked, quickly disguises itself as desire. One of the most common mistakes men make is assuming that being agreeable equates to being attractive. In truth, the more you mirror her thoughts and values too closely, the more invisible you become. Agreement is not intimacy. It is sameness. And sameness kills polarity. You must create friction to generate energy. If she says she loves a certain film, question its deeper meaning or suggest an alternative interpretation. When she describes her worldview, challenge it gently, not to prove her wrong, but to demonstrate that you do not orbit her. Your independence of thought becomes a flame that draws her near. She does not want your approval. She wants your gravity. This is why the most desired men often appear paradoxical. They're kind but aloof, present but ungraspable, intense yet restrained. These men do not beg to be understood. They allow their mystery to ferment in silence. And this silence is not empty. It is provocative. She fills it with her imagination, and imagination is more potent than reality. A man who gives her everything she wants removes the space where attraction lives. But a man who gives only glimpses invites obsession. Logic would demand that if she likes you, she should commit. But desire doesn't follow logic. It is drawn out through scarcity, tension, and unpredictability. You should never try to justify yourself when questioned. Why didn't you text back? What did you mean by that comment? These are not inquiries. They are emotional tests. If you respond with explanations, she feels superior. If you respond with playful deflection or a cool smile, she feels fascinated. Logic closes the door with an answer. Emotion leaves it ajar with a suggestion. A man who learns to answer questions with energy rather than data will always maintain intrigue. He understands that a mystery she wants to solve is far more valuable than a conclusion she's already drawn. The same principle applies to physical attraction. Compliments are best given in passing, laced with ambiguity. Instead of a full sentence about her beauty, offer a look and a pause. Instead of saying she's special, tell her she's dangerous in a way that makes you curious. These phrases invite her to imagine what you're holding back. The more she tries to decode you, the deeper her emotional investment becomes. You are not a problem to be solved. You are an energy to be explored. Let her come to her own conclusions about your intentions. Those she creates herself are far stronger than any you try to deliver. Remember that desire cannot be negotiated. It is sparked. It grows in contradiction. You show depth by being kind to strangers and cold to sycophants. You reveal dominance not by loudness but by control. You captivate not by giving her everything, but by giving her almost enough. When you make her feel without knowing exactly why, you hold the power that logic will never grant. She may argue with your choices, but she will return. Because what draws her back is not your resume. It is the emotional blueprint you drew behind her eyes when she wasn't looking. In a world of oversupply, the rarest thing becomes the most valuable. A man who is always available, always responding, always eager. He becomes common, and the common is ignored. What holds attention, what evokes pursuit, is not abundance, but scarcity. Not because it manipulates, but because it signals value. We crave what we cannot easily access, and this craving intensifies when uncertainty clouds the next opportunity. Women, especially those accustomed to validation, are hypersensitive to changes in emotional economics. When your attention is rationed, it becomes a symbol of your internal power. And nothing seduces the feminine instinct more than the presence of a man who is not ruled by the need to please. Scarcity does not mean absence. Absence makes you forgotten. Scarcity is presence in measures. It is the art of revealing just enough to ignite interest, then vanishing before satiation sets in. This rhythm of closeness and withdrawal is not random. It is calibrated. Too much warmth and she believes she's conquered you. Too little, and she presumes indifference. The key is to become a controlled fire, warm enough to draw her in, unpredictable enough to keep her guessing where the flame might shift next. Most men give too much too soon. They respond to every message within seconds. They make time even when their schedule is full. They reschedule their lives around a woman who hasn't even earned their consistency. This is not generosity. It is desperation cloaked as chivalry. When you are always accessible, your value diminishes in her subconscious mind. Not because she is cruel, but because her biology is tuned to evaluate worth by challenge. What comes easily is interpreted as lacking demand. If no one else is competing for your time, why should she? Your attention must be treated like currency. Not in a transactional way, but in a strategic sense. If you give it to everyone, it becomes inflated and worthless. But if you measure it, if your time is earned, if your presence is deliberate, suddenly it gains weight. She begins to ask herself why you are so composed. Why aren't you chasing? What are you focused on? These questions stir her imagination, and once a woman begins imagining, she begins investing. The scarcity you project must begin with your mindset. You must believe your time is precious before others will. You must guard your schedule, not with excuses, but with principles. A man who cancels gym time or a business meeting to reply to a flirty text has already sold his value at a discount. Let her wait. Let her wonder. If she feels like she has full access to your world without earning entry, she will walk through the door without looking back. But if she has to knock twice, wait in the rain, and question whether you'll open, when the door finally opens, it will feel like a triumph. This principle extends into conversation. The man who reveals everything too soon becomes dull. The mystery is gone. The narrative is over. You must speak in layers. Drop details like breadcrumbs. Mention something fascinating in passing and let her ask about it. If she doesn't ask, move on. If she does, answer only part of it and steer the topic elsewhere. Let her chase the thread. Let her build the story. The information you hold back is more powerful than what you disclose. The greatest desire is not for what we are told, but for what we are almost told. Scarcity also means not always initiating. She must learn that your world spins with, or without her presence. You are not a fixture waiting in her orbit. You are your own sun, and she must align herself to your light if she wants warmth. There will be times she reaches out, and you do not reply. There will be weekends where your silence says more than any poem. These are not punishments. They are demonstrations. A man with purpose is not a pet. He cannot be summoned on demand. When you move like this, she does not question your interest. She questions your priorities, and in that question lies the hook. When you are scarce, your words carry more weight. A compliment given once after silence lands with the force of thunder. A glance that follows 3 days of distance strikes deeper than any text paragraph. Because now, your energy feels earned. And anything earned feels meaningful. Even the smallest gesture, a call, a laugh, a hand on the lower back, becomes amplified when she's unsure when the next one is coming. The gaps between the moments are what make the moments matter. Scarcity also prevents emotional inflation. When you're not constantly validating her, her sense of worth does not rely on your approval. This sounds counterintuitive, but it is essential. If she starts to value your attention for what it is rather than how often it appears, she treats your presence with reverence. This does not mean being distant forever. It means appearing unpredictably and meaningfully. You are not disappearing. You are reigning. A ruler does not wander the village daily. He appears at the balcony and vanishes again. The people cheer, not because he is always seen, because he is rarely so. Power does not belong to the most visible man in the room. It belongs to the most unpredictable. Predictability breeds control, and the one who is easily read is easily replaced. If a woman can map out your thoughts before you speak, anticipate your reactions before you act, then she controls the tempo of the entire interaction. She will respect you as long as you are a puzzle, and the moment you become an open book, she'll set you down on the shelf with the others she's already figured out. To hold her mind, and therefore her desire, you must become a man of many masks, never dishonest, but never fully knowable. The concept of the mask is not deception, it is strategy. The modern man has been trained to wear his heart on his sleeve, to disclose his feelings, intentions, and history with the hope that vulnerability will be rewarded. But there is a distinction between openness and exposure. When you expose yourself too soon, you create a one-dimensional frame. She knows how you think, what you want, and most dangerously, what to expect. She begins to schedule her emotional responses around your behavior. That is the beginning of disengagement. The unfamiliar excites her, the unpredictable captures her curiosity, and the unknowable keeps her emotionally invested. To master the mask is to move with layered intention. You say something kind but leave a sharp edge in your tone. You act warm one moment and distant the next. You praise her and then disappear for days without explanation. These fluctuations are not random. They are rhythm. Rhythm implies structure even in chaos. You are not erratic. You are orchestrating tension. When she's uncertain of where she stands, she starts to evaluate why your attention shifts. The moment she begins analyzing you, she has already submitted part of her emotional authority. A woman's deepest attraction is not always toward the man who gives the most, but toward the man who gives differently. Not the loudest, not the wealthiest, not the most consistent, but the most difficult to categorize. She wants to explain you, and when she cannot, she tries harder. In doing so, she invests more time, energy. She consults her friends about what your silence means. She reads your messages. She compares your actions to her past experiences and finds no easy match. You are no longer just a man to her. You are a phenomenon. This is the power of the mask. You wear the intellectual mask with one woman, showing depth, discussing books and philosophy, only to later remove it and reveal the physical, primal energy beneath. With another, you reveal ambition and drive, but withhold emotional depth, letting her feel there is more beneath the surface she hasn't earned yet. Each version is true, but no version is whole. Wholeness is reserved for rare occasions, and even then, never fully revealed. She gets fragments, clues, and signals, but never the full story, because the full story ends the hunt, and desire dies when pursuit becomes routine. A man of masks is also a man of discipline. He does not seek validation. He does not overshare in the hope of bonding. He understands that silence is as seductive as speech. He knows that when she expects warmth and gets distance, it creates longing, and when she expects coldness and receives a sudden burst of tenderness, it destabilizes her emotional rhythm and binds her deeper. This is not cruelty. It is calibration. You are teaching her that your attention is not a given. It is earned, unexpected, and therefore treasured. The mask also protects you. When you are hard to read, you are hard to manipulate. When she cannot predict what will affect you, she cannot weaponize emotion. She cannot guilt you because you do not respond on cue. She cannot provoke you because your expression remains composed. She cannot seduce you into weakness because she cannot tell which mask she is truly facing. Even when she believes she has reached your core, you remain one step further back. Not because you fear intimacy, but because you understand the value of mystique. Women often speak of wanting realness, but what they chase in private moments is intensity, and intensity comes from uncertainty. The man who is always there, always available, always stable may be reliable, but he is not irresistible. The man who challenges her expectations, who can be passionate and then cool, who is emotionally present but strategically distant, he occupies her thoughts long after the room goes quiet. He is not defined by one trait. He contains multitudes, each glimpse a new mask, each moment a controlled performance. You must understand that in every interaction, she is scanning for patterns. Break the pattern. If you usually text at night, switch to morning. If you compliment her looks, next time praise her logic. If she expects jealousy, respond with indifference. Each disruption unsettles the expectations she subconsciously created. Now she is leaning in. Now she is watching more closely. Now she is the one chasing meaning in your behavior. The mask is not about hiding, it is about leading. She follows the story you create. You give her characters, but never the script. You let her draw conclusions, only to pull the rug with a gesture she didn't expect. And as she tries to decode you, she slowly discards the control she thought she had. She bends, not because you forced her, but because she cannot stop watching. The world has lied to you. It told you that sincerity alone would earn you loyalty, that transparency guarantees love, and that being consistently available proves your worth. But reality, especially in the realm of desire, is governed not by noble ideals, but by power perception and psychological leverage. Women will never openly admit this, not because they are deceitful, but because the very forces that attract them operate beneath the surface of language and reason. They don't want you to understand this, because the moment you do, you step out of the role of the obedient suitor and into the role of the man they cannot control. You now understand that logic doesn't ignite desire, emotion does. That availability isn't attractive, scarcity is. That to be pursued, you must first become a mystery. That power in relationships isn't taken by force, but by subtle control of rhythm, contrast, and tension. Every move you make should be intentional. Every word you speak should either reveal nothing or suggest everything. You must become the flame, not the moth. The man who lives without this awareness is destined to be reshaped by women, chased only until he is caught, adored only until he gives in, loved only until he becomes predictable. But the man who applies these principles becomes something else entirely. He is not begged for attention. He is watched in silence. He is spoken about in circles. He is the one whose presence is missed before he even leaves the room, because she doesn't just want to have him. She wants to figure him out, and she never quite can. If you become that man, the rules change. The game shifts in your favor, and suddenly, it's not you wondering where you stand. It's her.